Would it make sense to bring back this bullpen staple for 2025? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and welcome back to this sort of continuous series on this channel here where we are making our way through all the impending free agents on the Red Sox list right now and talking about whether or not they should bring them back. We've already talked about Tyler O'Neill. We all kind of know the situation with Kenley. We've talked about Pivetta, and today we're talking about one of the staples in the Red Sox bullpen over the last year, Chris Martin. We're going to be taking a look at the pros and the cons for the Red Sox bringing him back to ultimately decide if that's something we want the Red Sox to do. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one. Let's get into it. Okay, so like we've been doing with the rest of the players in this sort of mini series here, let's start with the pros about bringing back Chris Martin. I think obviously the standout one is what he could possibly bring to the Red Sox bullpen statistically. Chris Martin, like I said in the intro, has been a bit of a workhorse for this Red Sox bullpen over the last couple of years. Specifically, that 2023 season is still absolutely incredible because in that season, he had a 105 ERA in 51 and a third innings with a bit higher but still really solid FIP of 244, a 1.14 walks per nine, and an 8.1 K per nine. Basically, he was striking out 6 batters to every one person he walked, which not only led to a 434 ERA, a ridiculous 343% above league average production. It also led to him getting some Cy Young votes as well, finishing 12th on the season. This year, he certainly wasn't the dominant pitcher like that we saw in 23. I don't think it would have been pretty hard to replicate that season, but he still had a pretty solid year, finishing with a 345 ERA with a significantly lower 278 FIP, meaning he was most likely getting a bit unlucky on the mound. Not entirely hard to imagine with the way the Red Sox play defense this year. His strikeouts were actually up compared to 2023 at 10.2 per nine. His walks were lower and set a career high, or I guess a career low, at 0.6 per nine. That is a whole lot of strike throwing from Chris Martin. He ended up this year with a 124 ERA plus, about 24% above league average production. Was he as good as he was for the 2023 Red Sox in 24? No, but Chris Martin absolutely was still a staple in this Red Sox bullpen of some pretty decent consistency. And if we're coming into a year where the Red Sox are serious about an overhaul of their bullpen, it might not be a bad idea to get a consistent veteran presence in there, especially if it's going to be for a shorter term deal. Now, I will say there was a bit of inconsistency in Chris Martin's game in 2024. There were a couple of months here out of the entire season where he just simply didn't look like himself, and that was the first couple of months of the year and the last month or so of the season. I think a lot of that, especially the last month of the season, can be attributed to coming back from injury, but there were some signs that, hey, maybe it wasn't as solid as the overall statistics may say, but we'll get to that in a second. Another reason why the Red Sox might consider bringing Chris Martin back in 2025 has a lot to do with high leverage situations. Now, the Red Sox this year in 24 weren't exactly the best team in high leverage spots from a pitching standpoint. In fact, opponents' OPS plus was about 8% above league average, meaning most teams were hitting better than average against the Red Sox in high leverage spots. One person who was doing a really solid job in high leverage situations this year was Mr. Chris Martin, who was actually absolutely fantastic in high leverage spots and actually better in high leverage situations than he was in low leverage situations, because in high leverage situations, opponents were hitting just 235 off of him with a 69 OPS plus, well below league average. The Red Sox going into 2025 absolutely do have some high leverage players coming into their bullpen, but there are question marks surrounding all of them, right? Whitlock was at one point one of the better high leverage guys in the league, but he's coming off of injury and coming off of the rotation. Hendricks is obviously a closer, but he's coming off of injury, and the rest of the options here are young. They're inexperienced. Justin Slayton, Luis Guerrero, Zach Penrod, guys like that who could be high leverage arms who might just not have the experience necessary to take over that job fully yet. Signing Chris Martin back and having him in this bullpen to take care of those high leverage spots and be someone you know who can take care of those high leverage spots could be really valuable to the Red Sox, not only because of on-field play, play, but because of the fact that you are going to at some point be relying on some of these younger players to take that mantle. And what better way to transition them into high leverage situations than have someone in that bullpen, a veteran leader type presence like Chris Martin, to show them the ropes. I think that might not be a bad idea at all. Plus, on top of that, the money that it would take to get Chris Martin really isn't anything crazy significant. Chris Martin is getting older, and that means it is probably going to be most likely just a one-year deal to get him back to the Red Sox. Now, Spotrac.com has his market looking like a one-year, $1.1-ish million deal. I personally think it'll end up taking closer to $2 million, but even if it does reach closer towards that $2 million range, that's a drop in the bucket for a major league club, right? That is an offhanded contract to say, yeah, well, whatever. We still have a ton of budget left to go get other guys. It wouldn't impede on any of their other plans coming into the 2025 offseason. So if you look at it, I think there are a lot of pros to bringing back Chris Martin. I think there are a lot of reasons why he makes sense to stay in a Red Sox uniform. But I also think there are some reasons the Red Sox should be wary about bringing him back to the Boston Red Sox. So let's take a look at those. But before we do me a favor, make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps these videos out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for taking a second and doing so. Let's get into some of these cons. I think when we're looking at all of the potential cons of bringing back Chris Martin, they all relate to two different things, and that is injury and age. And I think both of those things kind of go hand in hand. Taking a look at the injury side of things, Chris Martin did spend some significant time this year on the IL. He had two separate stints on there. Obviously, the bigger one being that elbow tightness that kept him out for a while, or that forearm tightness. It was one of the two. Either way, it kept him out for a while, and in combination with Justin Slayton, that kind of totally threw off this bullpen, sent him into a spiral a bit, right? That is a lot of risk coming into 2025 to assume that he is going to be healthy and fully ready to go for an entire season, which relates back to the age thing, right? Because any pitcher in Major League Baseball at this point is going to have some sort of injury history. They're going to have seasons where they've spent significant time on the IL. It's just simply how the game works at this point in its lifespan. But at the same time, too, Chris Martin's 39 years old in 2025. It's not only going to be exponentially a higher risk to sign a 39-year-old and expect them to be healthy than, say, a 30-year-old or a 33-year-old, but it's also going to take longer for him to rehab those injuries. It's just simply how the human body works, right? It might be too big of a risk for the Red Sox to take to bring this guy back and put him into a prominent role in the bullpen if he's going to end up on the injured list again. And again, it was only two times this season, but this season when he got injured, it really impacted how the bullpen did performance-wise. Like, if you want to look at the statistics, they got significantly worse when Chris Martin and Justin Slayton went down basically at the same time. Is that worth the risk just to have that happen again in 2025? The other thing relating to age with Chris Martin is simply regression, right? Regression on statistics. Now, Chris Martin, like I said, wasn't the same pitcher he was in 2024 that he was in 2023. There were signs and sometimes even stretches during this season where fans or analysts or whoever was looking at it and saying, well, is this the Chris Martin we're going to get from now on, or is he going to be able to adjust? And for the most part, he was able to make those adjustments, but going forward at this point in his career, at what point is he going to start to see serious regression? Is that going to happen in 2025? That's going to be a really tough question for the Red Sox and honestly, Chris Martin himself to answer. And when that regression does come, how is he able to adjust to that, right? You could still be an effective pitcher without the best stuff you've ever had in your career, especially if you locate the way Chris Martin does, but it does lead to some other complications. I think the biggest ones actually came through a little bit during this season because taking a look, when we're talking about the term regression, one of the things you point to is what type of contact are players having off of the pitches they are making contact on. Chris Martin did a really good job of missing bats in 2024, but at the same time too, he was giving up harder contact overall than he was last year. He was giving up a lot more fly balls, and that led to more home runs than he's given up in a pretty decent amount of time. Again, talking about the regression thing, is this something that the Red Sox believe is just who Chris Martin is at this point in his career, or is this something they believe they have the ability to adjust with him coming into 2025? So I think when we're talking about the cons of Chris Martin, it just simply comes down to age and injury risk, and those are two really big things the Red Sox are going to need to debate as they debate whether or not they want to bring him back. Now, in terms of overall looking at it, you guys can make your own conclusion, but to me, I'm a bit on the fence on this one. I think price-wise, it really might be worth the risk to try and bring Chris Martin back simply for that veteran leadership and simply for maybe a bit of security in the Red Sox bullpen. But I think it only works under one condition, and that is if you have the depth necessary in your bullpen to sustain their performance through a Chris Martin injury. I think it's sort of a certainty at this point that at some point he's going to end up on the IL in 2025. It's just part of getting older, right? But this year, it really sunk the Red Sox. If they have the depth to sustain themselves through that, then I think it might not be a bad idea to bring Chris Martin back. But I also think there are other options on the free agent market or via the trade market that could be more impactful and younger and less of an injury risk than Chris Martin may be. So to be honest with you, I can't really give you my opinion on whether or not I think the Red Sox should bring him back because I am dead in the middle on this one. So I'm relying on you guys. Let me know in the comment section down below. What would you guys do? If you were the GM of the Boston Red Sox, would you re-sign Chris Martin? What type of deal would you do with him? And what sort of position would you put him in that bullpen? Would it be in a high leverage role? Would it be in a lower leverage role? What would you do with Chris if you were to sign him back? And if you weren't going to sign him back, let me know why in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps these videos out a ton. It's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you want to listen to these episodes instead of watching them, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.